For years, David Phelps was one of the most powerful voices in Christian and gospel music. His singing wasn't just about melody, it carried deep emotions that inspired people across the world. But then, almost without warning, he seemed to disappear. The man whose voice once filled concert halls and gave hope to millions was suddenly quiet. Fans began asking questions. Why wasn't he performing as often? Was he taking a long break? Was there something wrong? No clear answers ever came, and David himself stayed silent. That silence only made people more curious and worried. It wasn't just about a singer missing from the stage. For many, it felt like a part of their own lives was missing too. His songs had been a source of comfort in dark times, and now, with his absence, fans felt unsettled. Behind the applause, the lights, and the smiles, David was carrying a weight that no one could see. His silence wasn't about losing love for music, it was about losing something much deeper. And when he finally chose to open up, his words revealed a heartbreaking truth that explained everything. To understand why David's revelation hit so hard, you need to know the man behind the music. Born in Texas, David Phelps grew up surrounded by faith, family, and a love for music. Over the years, he became one of the most admired tenors in gospel music. His voice wasn't just strong, it was emotional. With every note, he could make people feel joy, sorrow, or hope in ways that words alone could never capture. Fans often said that David didn't just sing songs, he lived them. That's why his disappearance felt so confusing. How could someone so full of life and passion suddenly step back? What many people didn't know was that while David was on stage giving hope to others, behind the scenes, he was battling emotions that grew heavier with time. His smile was bright, but it wasn't always real. He had learned how to hide his pain well, but as the years went by, that hidden pain became too much. David's journey shows that no matter how strong someone seems, there are often struggles hidden in the shadows. Behind the flashing lights of concerts and the sound of cheering fans, David carried a personal struggle that few knew about. His performances gave people hope, but off stage, he often felt empty. He admitted later that he was dealing with a heavy burden, something that made him feel broken inside. For a long time, he tried to keep going. He thought if he smiled, sang, and showed strength, maybe the pain would fade. But it didn't. Instead, it grew heavier with each passing day. He described it as drowning inside while still smiling for everyone else. That image alone touched millions when he finally shared it. Fans who once saw only his confidence now saw his humanity. They realized that even someone with a voice so powerful could struggle with weakness. His silence had not been laziness or lack of interest. It was about survival. He needed time to face the things he had buried for too long. And though it took years, David eventually found the courage to speak. When David finally chose to share his truth, it wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't polished for the media or designed to grab attention. His voice shook, not because of stage fright, but because of years of carrying hidden pain. The revelation was simple yet heartbreaking. He had suffered a devastating personal loss. Someone very dear to him, someone who had been the center of his world, was gone. That loss shattered him in ways he could not explain. The music that once gave him joy became painful, because every song reminded him of the love he had lost. He confessed that although he sang about hope, there were days when he couldn't feel it himself. These words touched his fans deeply. For years, they had leaned on his voice for encouragement. Now they saw the human side of David, the man who needed hope just as much as anyone else. His truth broke hearts, not because it ruined his image, but because it reminded everyone how fragile life really is. When David's confession became public, the reaction was overwhelming. Fans from all over the world reached out with love and support. Social media was flooded with messages of encouragement. People wrote about their own struggles, saying David's honesty gave them the courage to open up about their pain too. What made his revelation so powerful was its sincerity. In a music world where performers often try to look perfect, David chose to show his brokenness. That vulnerability turned into a source of strength, not just for him, but for everyone who listened. His fellow musicians and friends praised his bravery, saying that being real was one of the hardest things anyone could do. By sharing his grief, David gave people permission to admit their own. He reminded everyone that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a form of silent strength. Although David's story was heartbreaking, it was not the end. In fact, it became a new beginning. He admitted that once he spoke his truth, he felt lighter. For years, silence had been a prison. Speaking out broke the chains. He realized he didn't have to carry his grief alone. Slowly, he began to rebuild. He started focusing on the small but meaningful parts of life, time with his family, writing music that came straight from the heart, and appreciating every day he was given. His voice, already famous for its richness, began to carry even more depth. Fans could feel the sincerity behind his songs in a way that was stronger than before. Instead of hiding behind a mask, David chose to sing with his whole heart, broken pieces and all. His healing didn't happen overnight, but his willingness to be open became part of the process. It showed that even in pain, beauty can be created. David's honesty created a wave of compassion that reached far beyond his own circle. Fans who once admired him only for his music now admired him as a person. His openness turned into a movement of understanding and kindness. People shared their own stories of loss, depression, and recovery, saying that David's courage inspired them. In a world that often values appearances over reality, his choice to show his struggles made him even more beloved. His legacy now includes more than his powerful voice, it includes the message that being real is more important than being perfect. Every song he sings carries not only notes and melodies but also a reminder that life is fragile, and yet, even in brokenness, hope can be found. Today, at 55, David Phelps lives with a new perspective. He still sings, but with a deeper meaning than ever before. His songs are not just performances, they are reflections of his own journey. He has learned to cherish the simple things, family, faith, and honesty. He says that music has always been a form of healing for him, but now it's even more personal. Fans who attend his concerts feel not just entertained but connected to his story. They see a man who has been through pain yet chooses to sing anyway. That resilience makes his voice even more powerful. David's journey reminds us that our heroes are not perfect. They have scars, losses, and struggles, just like everyone else. What makes them inspiring is not perfection but the courage to keep going. David Phelps' story is more than just the tale of a famous singer. It's about the power of truth, the weight of silence, and the healing that comes from vulnerability. His revelation broke hearts because it showed the painful reality behind the spotlight, but it also healed hearts because it reminded people that no one is ever truly alone in their struggles. His message is simple yet powerful. Sometimes the most beautiful songs are born from pain. When we allow ourselves to be real, we give others the strength to do the same. For David, this moment of truth has become just as important as his music. His songs will continue to inspire, but his honesty will be remembered as the moment he showed that even the strongest voices can falter, and even then, hope can rise again. One of the most powerful lessons from David Phelps' journey is how different life on stage can be from life behind the scenes. Fans only see the spotlight, the cheering crowds, and the polished performances. They see the glamorous side of being a successful singer, but rarely do they see the quiet moments after the show ends. David admitted that after some of his most celebrated performances, he would walk backstage and feel completely empty. The lights would fade, the audience would leave, and he was left with a silence that felt heavy. He said it was almost like living two lives, the one the world saw and the one he kept hidden inside. For years, he tried to balance both. He wanted to keep giving his fans the hope they expected from him, even while his own heart was breaking. But pretending took a toll. The more he smiled for others, the more he hurt inside. This contrast is something many performers struggle with, but David's story puts it into words. His honesty reminds us that even the most admired stars are human beings who can feel lonely, sad, and overwhelmed. What makes his story so meaningful is not that he suffered in silence, but that he finally chose to break that silence and be real about it. The real beauty of David's revelation is that it wasn't only about pain, it was also about healing. By sharing his story, he created space for hope, not just for himself but for millions of people who listened. He admitted that for years, he felt like he had to carry his grief alone, but once he spoke out, he realized how much love and support surrounded him. That realization gave him new strength. Today, David uses his platform not just to sing but also to speak about the importance of honesty and vulnerability. He encourages others to stop hiding behind "I'm fine" when they're not fine at all. He believes that when people are truthful about their struggles, healing begins. His journey shows that brokenness is not the end, it can be the beginning of something even stronger. His music now carries this message clearly. Every note is filled with the idea that life is fragile, but hope is always possible. For fans, hearing this from David makes his songs even more powerful. They no longer listen only to a singer with a perfect voice, they listen to a man who has walked through pain and still chooses to sing about hope. His story is proof that honesty can transform not just one life, but many. In today's world, where social media often pressures people to present perfect lives, David Phelps' story stands out as a reminder of what really matters. So many people struggle in silence because they fear being judged if they admit their weaknesses. David's decision to open up shows that vulnerability is not shameful, it's human. This message is especially important now, as more and more people deal with loneliness, depression, and loss. His story tells us that it's okay to be real, to admit that things are not perfect, and to reach out for help. Beyond music, David has become an example of how courage can inspire change. His legacy is no longer just about the incredible voice that once amazed audiences, it's about the honesty that now touches hearts even deeper. At 55, David Phelps has proven that sometimes the bravest act is simply telling the truth. And that truth, while heartbreaking, has become a source of healing for both him and the people who love him. For many years, David Phelps carried the burden of silence, and this part of his story is one of the most powerful lessons for anyone listening. Silence may seem easier at first because it hides pain from the world, but over time it becomes a heavy weight. David described how every time he went on stage, he felt as though he was putting on armor, smiling, singing, and inspiring others while inside he was breaking. That double life drained him, both physically and emotionally. He admitted that silence can sometimes be more painful than the grief itself because it forces you to face struggles alone. His story shows that no matter how strong someone looks on the outside, you can never truly know what they are going through inside. Many fans said they were shocked when David finally shared his truth because he had always seemed so joyful on stage. That shock is exactly why his message matters. Too often, people assume that those who appear strong don't struggle, but David's honesty proves otherwise. By breaking his silence, he not only freed himself but also gave others permission to open up about their own hidden pain. His story reveals that the cost of silence is heavy, but the reward of speaking out is freedom. David Phelps' decision to finally share his truth will be remembered as one of the defining moments of his career. While his voice and music have already earned him a place in gospel music history, it is his courage to be vulnerable that will leave the deepest mark. Fans say that his songs now feel different, more powerful, more meaningful, because they know the story behind them. His honesty created a bond that goes beyond music, a bond built on real human connection. David once said, "I've always sung about hope, but there were days when I lost it." That statement alone became a source of comfort for countless people who felt the same way. His courage continues to inspire not only his listeners but also other artists who struggle with the pressure to appear perfect. His story reminds us that true legacy is not built on fame, awards, or flawless performances, it's built on truth. The impact of his choice to speak will continue for generations. Every time someone listens to his music, they won't just hear a tenor's incredible voice, they'll hear the story of a man who was brave enough to face his pain, share it, and turn it into hope for others. That is a legacy far greater than any stage or spotlight could ever give.